Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. This is John with 20's on the 20's, and we got Cam, the Hammerhead.
Where the hell did the hammerhead come from?
I don't know. I was thinking Hammer Time, but
Just because of
I
the
was
picture
thinking
of me?
Camera Time.
Camera time?
Camera
That
Time.
could be a show of its own, honestly.
I don't know.
Like a
It
side
seems to fit the
segment.
vibe.
It does.
Yeah.
I can see it working.
So why are you dressed like Jesus?
I'm a little as confused as you are.
You gotta get a little
Picked it
closer to
up.
Mike, buddy.
Did not know it was a weak mic. Okay.
It's not the only weak thing in this room.
Wow. Okay. Now I'm getting attacked. Might as well leave at this point.
Oh.
Picked it up for $20 at a Halloween Express for a birthday party, and now it's just kind of become the outfit of choice for spiritual journeys like this one.
Why did you what kind of birthday are you going to that you bring Jesus outfit?
The kind where they don't tell me it's a Halloween party until I'm almost there.
So you just stopped at the nearest Halloween store
Yes.
and you walked in
Correction, my Dan kidnapped me and took me to the nearest Halloween store.
and you walk in.
Yes.
Was the costume just sitting right there or did that come later?
Well, the first one was a Trump mask. And going
Oh,
into the household that I was going into, I didn't want to get stabbed maliciously.
maliciously.
Yes. Gruesomely, if that's a better word.
Why is that?
They're not fans of it. They're
They're not
not.
Trump fans?
Not at all. A lot of people aren't, which is understandable. Dude's kind of an idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, both of them are idiots, but it's just kind of which
Yeah.
idiot you want to
Yeah, I mean it's
wanna
like a
have.
net zero at this point. They both kind of net out and you
Yeah.
really crunch the
Yeah.
numbers and
Look it all over.
the theories and politics and yeah, I don't really want to talk about this anymore. So
I'll say this will go downhill very, 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 very quick.
very fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't like a little bit of conflict, though?
That's fair. I feel like we could have a little philosophical tumble on this podcast.
Oh, absolutely. Get into a lot about conflict.
So, where are you from?
I am from Prior Lake, happily and sadly.
Why sadly?
Came from a school of 5,000 kids with a graduating class of 1,200. And no one there is ever who they say they are.
How does that make you feel?
I adopted that kind of I don't give a shit attitude very early.
Why?
Because it was a lot easier to, especially at that age, you don't really have the personal knowledge to kind of deal with how betrayal works, especially when you have a friend group that tight. I mean, obviously you're in high school, you think these are gonna be my friends for the rest of life. Like you don't think on to
Yeah.
college or anything, and then you get backstabbed by them, and it's like your whole world shatters. Whether that be, a personal relationship, a friend relationship, family relationship.
Wow.
And then I don't know, it's easier to shut it out than to kind of figure out how to work around it.
Is that why you'd say you dress comedically
Yes,
for a podcast?
yes. I came here. I mean, we're going to talk about some deep stuff, some pretty
Oh,
deep
I am
stuff.
so excited to talk about this deep stuff with you.
And you can't be all deep. You have to kind of counteract it, which is why. I mean, I came here. I'm wearing a Jesus costume with dress shoes and socks with toilet paper on them.
Socks with toilet paper. Just show the camera. Just show the camera those socks a little bit.
I mean, there's some good
Oh
socks.
my gosh.
They're
Look
pretty
at those
comfy.
socks, man.
They're pretty comfy. Got the Grinch jammies on. Bought these last night.
What kind of socks are those?
Toilet paper
That's a good
socks.
question. I got a bundle of them, so I've been to Vegas quite a bit, just traveling, and
Oh, you're a traveler.
not by choice. Not by choice at all. But yeah, no. It's a good sock shop out. So if you need socks, Vegas is definitely the way to go. I wouldn't recommend flying to Vegas only for socks, but definitely a place to do it.
Why are you a traveler not by choice? What does that mean?
I come from one of those kind of families where ideology is almost like forced on you, if that makes sense.
Oh,
Kind of one of those things where it's
Yep.
like,
I feel the exact same way about a lot of things.
you know that saying where it's like, parents try to live the life they couldn't have through their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, very much my family realized early on kind of the, not to toot my own horn, but like the athletic potential and the
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And so coming out of middle school and high school, I was signed up into almost every sport that you could possibly imagine: lacrosse, baseball, basketball, football, soccer, even some martial arts and stuff like that.
What's your favorite one?
By far, baseball. That's the one that got me into college.
Really?
Yep, paid for all of it.
What position do you play?
Starting pitcher, man.
Starting pitcher.
Yep.
What university do you go to?
St. Thomas.
St. Thomas. Do they give you a good ride on that?
It's 56,000 a year, and I don't have to pay a cent. So, yeah, it's a pretty. Yep, your face says it all. As much as how I looked when I got it in the mail. It's $200,000 I didn't have to pay for.
Not a single penny.
Not a single penny. Not housing. Not food. Nothing. Even transportation was paid for.
How do you feel about being a baseball player and not getting paid in your position? Does that bother you at all, being a D1 sports player?
Not at all. And I could make every argument for that. Obviously, NCAA college sports is one of the largest grossing forms of entertainment on the planet. They pull in billions upon billions of dollars from college football and March Madness and stuff of that nature. But I mean, you sign up for college to go to college. First and foremost, you are a student. That's what you're there to do. And you pay the university to be a student there and to study. It's not the other way around.
A dramatic amount of money, typically.
Usually an insane amount of money.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just part of the deal. It's how it was built. And if you sign up for sports outside of that, you have to realize that all of these athletes that are going to these big universities, their choice off of scholarship. Like, I went to St. Thomas because they gave me a full ride for baseball. I didn't go there because I wanted to play baseball for them. I went there because they're paying for my education.
Entirely.
And that's the case for a lot of college athletes. And as bad as it sounds, the audacity, if that's the best word of choice, to ask for more in return after that is kind of a little much from their end.
Do you find it upsetting?
Do I find it upsetting?
Yeah.
Like them asking for it?
Yeah.
No, because I mean, if you're playing for a network that makes that much money, you'd want to take a cut in it. So I mean, it's a reasonable question to ask, but do I think that they should win and get the money? No. I think it's a reasonable request, but doesn't get a reasonable response, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think it's justified for the most sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Based on the conversation.
Absolutely.
I mean, $55,000
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
year, you said?
Oh yeah, 55,000 a year.
55,000 a year. That's more than most players in AAA league make, right?
That's more than most people make working a normal job. Yeah.
Substantial amount of money that you're
That is
getting
an
for free.
incredible amount of money that I'm getting for free. And if you can't take that as a payment for what you're giving to the university by being a student athlete, then I think you need to rethink how you go about that.
Do you get televised when you play baseball?
Not to a nature that's of the size that a lot of universities are. Obviously, St. Thomas just got recently told that we're going D1, so that might change. I'm not sure how much it would change, but no, not usually, no.
Do you think you brought St. Thomas up to D1?
No, not at all. That was all football. No, it was every football game would be like 70-0, and then they changed that by throwing them into D1, and then they just kind of dragged every other sport. So for all I know, I could go back and we just get absolutely slaughtered, which is probably the case.
Well, here's to hoping. Wishful thinking.
Yeah, as long as as long as the scholarship stays, I won't complain.
Yeah. What's your major?
It's actually changing now. So I double majored in mechanical engineering and philosophy, which is already a weird combination. And
what do you even do with that?
Well, the mechanical engineering one's pretty straightforward. That's a lot of versatility, a lot of money in that field. Philosophy one is a different one. So I come from, obviously, as I said, I come from a family where a lot of ideologies were forced. That includes religion, way of thinking, stuff like that. And being the weird little rebel that I was, I kind of just said no to all of it. And then going into college, a lot of people that you meet obviously have everything figured out from work down to
Mm-hmm.
how they think, and I was very much missing the last half of that. And so I picked up philosophy under 3 different philosophy professors and a lot of other tutors and kind of basically used it to figure out the last half of my life.
So now you're double majoring in philosophy and
Yep.
mechanical engineering?
Yep.
Gosh, which one's more difficult?
It depends on what you look at as difficult, because they're both very, very different. That's why people get so weird when I tell them that those are my majors, because they're so polar opposite of each other. Like, engineering is mostly just turn yourself into a human calculator. That's all that's ever asked. You lose the people skill, and philosophy is much more about just an incredibly vast understanding of all different types of knowledge that have been basically spewed out by very brilliant people throughout time. And you kind of
Wow.
connect the dots on it to make your own understanding, and that's mostly where the job in philosophy comes from, but that's not the part I'm pursuing. I just wanted to figure my shit out.
So are you majoring in philosophy because you want to understand why you disagree with your parents?
I do it so I can figure out why I disagree with a lot of things.
Hmm.
There's been a lot of places that I didn't fit into in life, and that's the case with a lot of people, but it's more of how self-aware you are of the positions you don't fit in.
Why do you think that is? Because from my perspective, an outsider, I know we've known each other for, gosh, what, 5 months now?
Yeah.
Um, I believe to be true that you're an amazing person. So, like, why do you feel that way?
I mean, that doesn't change the way I act. I will always act with generosity. If people ask me to do
Sure.
something and I respect them, I will do it without the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
I will always be there for people, but it's less about how I treat other people and more about how I think about myself.
Would you say that's your biggest enemy in life?
It is for a lot of people, and for me, it's no different. Yes, absolutely. It's very much been kind of a battle against me pushing myself down, finding a way around it, and then getting pulled right back.
Why do you think that is?
A lot of disagreements, a lot of weird childhood moments, and then a lot of, I don't know. I had very much, once I thought I figured stuff out, I kind of lost a lot of stuff with myself and changed who I was for people that didn't deserve it, and had to find my way back.
Hmm. Do you think that was that more family based or relationship?
Family and self.
Hmm.
There's a lot of family leaving my life, trying to come back in, me thinking it was my fault, trying to
Yeah.
change for them, realizing it wasn't worth it, and then realizing that I was right back to square one,
Hmm.
and digging myself out of that hole again.
Do you feel like it was wasted time?
No. And that's where kind of that philosophical study that I had going for me came from, is it's kind of, there's no really such thing as wasted time unless you are literally doing absolutely nothing. And even then, that can be used for mental health and stuff like that, but otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it is, it's kind of that what you learn on the journey compared to the journey itself.
Yeah.
Every time around on that failure, you realize more and more of what you're doing wrong and kind of counteract that with ways that you can do it right.
Mm-hmm.
And that, yeah, helps a lot with personal growth, most
Yeah.
definitely.
I hear you there, buddy. Yeah, I try to live the philosophy that there's no regrets in life.
Oh, absolutely. Regrets aren't something that you can't control. It's just your own thought process on the choices you make.
Mm-hmm.
You can absolutely die with no regrets being an absolutely terrible person. It's
Mm-hmm.
just whether or not you want to feel the guilt from what you've done and whether you think it's a bad thing. I mean, look at some of the dictators throughout history. They were some awful, awful people, but in their mind, they were doing something correct.
Hmm. So you're using that as the basis for why the biggest challenge for most people is themselves.
I'm using the basis of perspective.
Hmm.
Everything comes down to perspective. The hardest thing to change about a person is perspective, and the strongest part of a person's personality is their perspective. It's come through in all the election votes, it comes through in religion, it comes through day-to-day tasks in life. People are very set on the form of knowing that they have formed on what goes on around them.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from the way they're raised, the way that they've been taught, the way they look at themselves.
Do you think there's a certain age where people get to that point?
Yes, I don't know exactly where. Obviously, if you're an infant, you're not super self-aware.
I
Kind
would
of
say
at like,
somewhere in the mid-20s.
yeah,
I
I'd
feel like
agree
that's
with
where you
that.
kind of got things
I'd
hammered
agree
out.
with that.
Because the family hierarchy and everything that goes along with that is kind of set and ingrained in you, and that's the point when you kind of move on your own.
Yep. And then you kind of take everything with you like luggage, and it's very, very hard to drop that.
That's a good way to put it. Luggage.
Yeah. It's almost like, I don't know. It's like weight. It's like dead weight that it's like a hoarder. It turns you into a hoarder. It's dead weight
Yeah.
that's very hard to throw out. Because, I mean, that's how you were raised. It's what you came from.
That's crazy.
Indeed.
What's the biggest thing you realized after going into a theology?
Honestly, as bad as it sounds, how jank religion is. Not jank, more of I don't even know the word for it. More of misleading. It's misleading.
Yeah. I feel like the Bible has succeeded for as long as it has because it gives people a very vague basis of how to live a happy life.
Well, people don't realize the versatility it has, though. There's so much versatility in that one book. That's why, as much as I dislike the followings of religion, that book is one of the greatest human-made novels ever. Whether it's human-made or not, that's still up in the air. But
Yeah, it's a debate.
and that starts with going back to perspective. There's three different perspectives on the Bible, followed by three different perspectives on those perspectives.
Yeah.
There's the people that look at it as sort of the very literal, the spiritual, and then the somewhere in between, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's the very literal of people that are like, oh, it's man-made. You know, it's just a collection of stories. Can be taken how you want it, used for personal growth or whatever. And then there's the group that believes that it is on absolute the word of God.
Yeah. Inherent truth.
And then there's the group that's somewhere in the middle that's, you know, it's maybe man-made stories, but it's told with the word of God through them. And then through that, there's three ways of understanding, which is the people that take it to heart, saying that this is how you should live your life based off the teachings of it, and then the people that say this is how you achieve personal growth through the teachings of it, and then the people that read it and don't understand shit.
Where do you fall under?
I very much see it as I mean, I've read that thing cover to cover a couple of times, back and forth, different stories, different ways of going through it. I very much see it as not a way of living, but a way of growing. It's very much used to not so much as maturity, but sort of just dialing in the questions that you've had. I mean, that's what religion is. It's a bunch of what ifs. And that's where people kind of fall off into that literal spectrum, is they always ask, like, you know, where's the proof?
Yeah.
They always ask, like, if he's so great, if he does so much, where's the proof?
But I think that's why it's lived as long as it has.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
That's the best thing about it.
All what ifs.
Yeah, that's the best thing of it. And as childish as of a relation as this sounds, so yesterday I watched the movie Elf. It's gonna be a really childish relation, but it makes sense, so roll with me here.
Yeah.
So in the movie Elf, obviously there's that scene where Santa crashes into Central Park in New York.
Because no one believes.
And the first solution that the kid and the dad have is, you know, let's go get all the news cameras and put them on you, and then everyone will believe. And he said, you know, knowing isn't the same as believing. It can go the same with religion. It's kind of that once you know all the facts about it, what's the point in trying to have faith in those what ifs? If you have all the answers to everything, what's the point of it?
Yeah. In that sense, you would.
What would you see? There you go. What would you even do?
Holy cow.
That's the greatest thing about it, and the part that I realized early on with my religion is very much about your own view on it, and mine was
Mm-hmm.
always it's almost like it works backwards. There's no set stone thing. You almost start at the answer of yes, there is God, and yes, there is faith, and then you kind of go down the stepping stones of hitting
Yeah.
like, what do you do with that? Well, you go to him maybe when you're hurting. You go to him when you have a problem. It's almost like it's something to lean on.
Do you feel like you've ever felt God,
Yes, absolutely.
but you question whether he exists or not?
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit?
So the moment that it happened, it was actually when I was right when I turned 18, and my mom and sister, I think, were somewhere off at a dance competition somewhere across the country. I don't really remember. It might have been like Colorado or Florida or something.
Yeah.
And the way our family works is we have pretty good size house, I would say. And our basement is like a duplex almost.
Yeah.
And our grandma isn't like forgetful enough to be in a home, but she has like leg surgery from time to time, so she lives down there. And I was down there while I think we were watching Dr. Phil or some Judge Judy or some grandma show that they always watch,
Yeah.
eating like those vanilla cookies that you always open,
Mm-hmm.
but they end up being sewing supplies.
Ah, so depressing.
And out of nowhere, I was just sitting there and we were watching. Out of nowhere, she turns and touches my hand and asks me, "Cam, are you afraid to die?" Which was a very, very, very just ballistic of a question coming from a 70-year-old woman just out of nowhere watching Dr. Phil.
What did you say?
Well, at first I was taken back. I didn't know how to answer at all because obviously super out of nowhere. I'm 18. I think I'm indestructible. And that question, honestly, if it would have come from anyone else, I probably would have laughed it off. But coming from her, it kind of hit me like a freight train. And my answer, of course, was yes. Everyone usually at some point in their life is afraid to die, whether they say they're not once they're
Mm-hmm.
confronted with it. And that was the first thought in my head. I was like, you know what? If I was actually going head on with a train right now or something, I'd probably cry. I'd probably be fucking terrified. And
Makes
of
sense.
course, being the normal person I am, I asked back, "Are you afraid to die?" And she looks me dead in the eye and gets really, really just this cold stare and really blank face. And she says, "No." And I ask her why. And the first thing that comes out of her mouth, she like closes her eyes and puts her hand on me. And her hand all of a sudden gets really, really warm. And she just says, "He's real."
Whoa.
And she started tearing up and she said, "I know I'm going to a good place. I've been a good person." And that was kind of when I was going through all my stuff of not knowing where I fit in.
Yeah.
And it almost was like I just got slammed through the earth and about 10 feet down further. It very much just kind of dragged me through. And I don't know if it really aligned anything, but it very much helped me realize how I view that type of subject, though. And then the not quite believing in God, I do believe there's something out there. There's something bigger than us. This doesn't happen miraculously.
Yeah.
That type of situation doesn't happen
Mm-hmm.
miraculously. That's not a random event.
No.
Not at all. Especially with how out of the blue it was. But then the question comes is with so much versatility in religion and so many different branches of it throughout history. I mean, even reading the Bible, it goes through like 10 different religions. Is sort of that question of what's right and wrong. And it becomes very difficult to kind of self center it, which is why I don't really follow with religious teachings too much because they very much try to make it a very singular path type thing for people, which I mean, honestly, in the long run, probably makes it easier for them.
Mm-hmm.
But as a personal experience, it kind of taints it for people
Yeah.
because it takes away the individuality of it.
I agree. Yeah.
It's a lot about control and less about the people.
I agree. Yeah, it's almost run in like a business sense at that point.
Oh, absolutely. That's how it
Yeah.
always has been. That's why they literally had to make laws separating government and religion.
Well, I mean, humans have always, as time has progressed, we've always adapted in the way that we look at the Bible to fit into our cultural norms
Mhm.
that we believe to be true.
Mhm.
It's the way that we adapt it to our own lives.
Yep. And then the issue with that then is then are we adapting our lives to the Bible, or is it almost like being conformed to the teachings? Because then that brings into a question of free will. Of if everything's so set in stone, there's always that thing like God has a path for you, is then where's our choice?
Yeah, that's a good conversation topic, free will
Yeah.
and the existence of free will.
Yeah.
And if God's all knowing,
yeah, absolutely.
but he gives you every power.
Yeah. It's like they talk so much about how everything is meant to be because he's all knowing and all benevolent.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we're still caught off guard. As if we don't have anything in our own control.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to realize how minuscule you are compared to the bigger picture of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then that comes back into play of like, how much do we actually control with ourselves?
Yeah. Wow. That was heavy.
I told you it'd get deep.
Do you think that religion is constructed in a way by higher powers in the world to control people? And that's why some cultures have completely removed religion, or some government agencies have completely removed religion because it interferes with the way they want to control?
Have you ever seen the movie The Book of Eli?
No, I have not.
Denzel Washington?
I haven't.
Okay, first off, highly recommend it.
Okay.
One of my favorite movies of all
Yeah, I'll
time.
add it to the list.
There is one quote that comes out of it. And it's sort of a biblical movie, but it goes a lot deeper than that.
Yeah.
And basically, the main gist of the story is it's a good guy and a bad guy, post-apocalyptic, and they're fighting over a Bible. One wants it for good, one wants it for bad, and you never really know like how can the Bible be used for bad. It's kind of a thing. Obviously, like there's been people who have used it, like like gay marriage goes against religion. That's probably a bad way to use the Bible. But
Holy Crusades.
yeah,
Bad way to
there's
use the
been
Bible.
some pretty gnarly wars taken over religion.
Catholic Church.
Yep, some bad
Pretty
powers
terrible.
and cultures and stuff like that that have been formed off of it. But then it goes deeper where it's not so much about that. The final line that he says where you kind of click everything in about why he wants it is he's trying to build a new civilization. He said that the Bible was built to control the minds of the desperate along with religion. It was built to give reason to the unreasonable, that is people who feel like they're living hell on earth. Which can be taken good and bad, because it could be salvation for them, but what kind of salvation? Because it could be a controlled salvation.
Yeah. It was really interesting. When I went on vacation this year to South Carolina, our flight,
Why'd you go to South Carolina?
they were open during a pandemic.
So it's just a little personal vacation.
Yeah.
It's just what was available.
But they bumped our flights, so we had to get rerouted to a place that was 2 hours away.
Oh, Jesus.
So we rented our car and we drove to Myrtle Beach, 2.5 hours through the rural south of South Carolina.
Sounds like a fun car ride.
Yeah. And it kind of blew my mind how poor
How
that
different
state
it
was.
is. And it's in the same country.
And it's one of the most Republican states.
Yep.
And they have no fundamental safety net.
And then, so I don't agree with Trump. I agree with Republican ideals. I don't agree with Trump.
Yeah.
But then that also comes down as you look to how much they defend it.
Yeah.
They always talk about how much he does for them or how much the system does for them, yet they live like that.
Yeah. I counted 86 churches on that 2 hour drive, and I counted 240 buildings that were rotting.
I bet you the churches looked absolutely pristine, though.
Absolutely.
Flawless, clean top to bottom. They probably even power washed the fucking sidewalk that stretched from corner to corner on it.
Why is religion so strongly associated with politics, do you think, and the Republican Party?
It's because a lot of what politics has become is almost like empty ideas. It's kind of that whole thing
Wishful
where like
thinking.
yeah, like like everyone says like politicians lie, which is a yes and no. They promise. They promise and they can't fulfill, which isn't necessarily a lie. It just means that they couldn't bring to the table what they
Yeah.
were talking about. And once that falls short, you need something else to grasp onto to kind of make reason of why you made that choice. Voting is a big choice. It is a huge choice. It's the one option that we have to basically dip our foot into the world that is politics in the most powerful country on the planet. And it's like a fallback plan.
Mm-hmm.
They use it once they can't fulfill the promise or once we realize that they can't, then it's kind of like that one thing that everyone can agree on. I mean, no one's going to argue with the church. It's the church.
Yeah.
It always has been the church. No one ever argues with the church.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you can fight back a little bit. You might not agree with the fact that they're asking for donations to people that you don't know, but I mean, you don't fight it. It's the church. It's the Holy Land.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be all good.
It's what people believe to be inherently true in those areas.
Exactly.
And they know they're going to get the voter no matter what they're
Yep.
saying, as long as they fit
As long as they
28% of the ideas that they
Yep, as long as they can tickle something in their brain that makes them think, hey, I think the same way as this guy. And what better way to do it than to tickle the part of the brain that almost 90% of the country agrees with? It'd be like if I told you, like, hey, President Trump eats Subway. Fuck, I eat Subway. Must be a good guy.
Yeah.
But you just take it a
Common
step further.
ground.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's so funny. I remember listening to how Christian people would talk about Obama and attack his
God.
personal character and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And it
Loved
was
that part
it
of
was
our history.
brutal, man.
Oh, my God. It's brutal now.
It's brutal.
It's been brutal for like the last 3 elections.
Absolutely
there
nuts.
there was Obama, and then afterwards it was the emails with Hillary, and then it was all those incredible memes about Trump making it into office and being like, "Well, fuck, what do we do now?" And now
Yeah.
it's burning cities down and trying to kill the president.
Yeah. I think he won. Okay. I'm not saying the guy is Hitler.
Is this going back to the Antichrist conversation we had?
No, this is not the Antichrist
Okay.
conversation. I'm not saying the guy's Hitler, but basically the reason why Hitler was so successful at mobilizing a country and rising to power was because they were impoverished because of their debt to the Allied
It's because
forces.
people wanted change.
And he gave a message that was radical enough
That people jumped on
to
it.
give people something to blame.
Exactly. Same with every other politician. Same with
Yeah.
Trump. That's
Yeah.
how Trump did it. You notice how the last presidential elections, it's never been about what can I do for the country. It's always about
Why are
what
we
can I
having this
make you guys
problem?
hate.
Yeah.
What can I make you hate about the other person? Fuck me.
Yeah.
Let's forget about me.
Look, I
What-
can't change
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah,
But
but
I'm going
I
to give you a reason
to hate it.
to hate what's going on.
Yeah. Whether it be Trump blaming Hillary
Yeah.
Clinton's emails or she did overseas or whatever the hell that bullshit was. I didn't get huge into the Hillary dispute, or whether it be the fact that Biden, for some reason, just forgets how to talk sometimes, or maybe says stuff that he disagrees with later, or the fact that Trump's a racist or whatever. It's no longer, people don't vote for a politician anymore for liking that politician. They vote for that politician because they hate the other one.
I think he was so successful at that, though.
Who, Trump?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. He's a businessman.
Totally picked the right opportunity.
I know. He's a businessman.
Right
They
after
they
Obama.
thrive off of opportunity built off of circumstances that they can control, like a variable.
One of the largest voting groups. This age is 45
Yep.
to 90.
Yep.
And he
And
knew
what
that.
what better way than to talk about their health care?
Yeah. He didn't change anything,
Yeah.
but
No, absolutely.
no, he got elected.
Yeah, no. And that's the same with what's happening right now. Is one of the most influential groups is like our generation, the ones that have the social media, the ones that can spread information at the click of a finger. And one thing they're very passionate about is these movements like Black Lives Matters and the LBGTQ and stuff like that. And what better way to get a man out of office than to call him a racist in these times?
That's fair.
We have cops killing black people in the streets for little to no reason.
Yeah.
What better way to gain off of that than to just start shooting fucking rounds at him?
Yeah. They used his own message.
Yep.
They reversed his own message,
Oh, absolutely.
turned it into a smear campaign.
Yep.
And they won.
Yep. I mean, hell, I watched it. It looked like it was going one way, and all of a sudden it just flipped around. And it's funny because there's all that talk about like all the mail-in ballots that were tampered with, stuff like that. You have to realize Trump literally told his voters not to mail in their ballots. He said vote in person. So to me, it's no surprise that those 120,000 votes showed up in Michigan that were all
It's no surprise.
for blue. It's like he literally told you guys not to vote by mail-in
Yeah.
ballot. So why would you find it weird that there's no mail-in ballots for him? That would be like me telling you to go to McDonald's and get me a McChicken and then freaking out when you come to me with a McChicken.
Yeah. He lost at his own game.
Yeah, he absolutely did.
Oh, that's crazy.
He got played. Is the best way to put it. He got played in a presidential election, which I feel is like the worst situation you get played in.
He was one of the, 82% of incumbents win.
Yes.
I think it was because his image was so radical and no one believed it would happen the first time that people made sure that it didn't happen a second time.
Yeah. Yeah. I also just love, oh my God, his confidence gets me every single time. Every single time. That speech that he gave, like, as they were finishing the counting on the votes and stuff like that, he's like, in my opinion, we did win the election. I was like, sir, there are still quite a few millions of votes being tallied up.
He was so confident.
Oh, absolutely.
He has that fake it till you make it persona.
And it works.
It works, yeah.
It works. It is like,
People like confidence.
they absolutely do.
That was a nice little tangent on politics.
Yeah, absolutely. I like how we said we're not going to go down that road. Then we
we kind of just
kind
went
of
down that
tackled
road.
it head
That's
on.
all right.
I feel like it wasn't a bad talk though.
Yeah.
We didn't touch on anything. We never chose a side. We just talked about what happened.
Who's your hero in life? If you had to pick one person, that's
Oh God.
probably the most inspirational person that you met.
Oh God. You're hitting me with the heavy hitters now. I would say could go the cheesy side and say my mom, just because she kind of went through the hell in the household with me. But honestly, the one who kind of figured it all out was my old baseball coach. And it wasn't even like a serious thing either. Like it wasn't some big talk. It was just going through some stuff. Was going to a practice. He came up to me, put his hand on the top of my head, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "Stop being a pussy." It was weird. It was weird.
Why did he say that?
He was very sports and Prior Lake were very tied together. Like we were basically very close knit. Everyone knew what was going on in everyone else's family. They knew that I had some troubles going on with my life and had noticed it with like how I was acting around them and stuff like that. And that's kind of where I picked up that whole like tell them how it is personality, is trying to lie to someone about how they should feel will never help them get anywhere. It'll just put them in a very hellish cycle that'll slowly tear them apart. Because then they expect to act the ways that you've told them to, realize they can't, and then think something's wrong with them.
Well, it's creating a false narrative.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was reading this book. Gosh, what is the name of that book?
Gotta check the Crucial Conversations. That sounds like one of those books that you read on a bridge in the middle of buttfuck nowhere and then make a Snapchat about it and never actually read the pages.
It was actually mind-boggling.
Oh, it's one of those. So it was a good book then.
It was really good.
What was
I
it
cannot
about?
recommend it more.
What was it about?
It's basically, it talks about quite a few different instances and aspects of difficult conversations.
Okay.
So there's, gosh, what is it called? The lose lose, Isaiah? The
Lose
lose
lose.
lose argument. Um, it basically talks about separating emotion out of things and how when we get emotional or we get excited about having a conversation or anxious, the adrenaline basically shuts down our brain because we're wired to
The emotion.
survive.
Oh.
Like, so there's less blood going to your
Yeah,
brain and
yeah,
more
yeah.
to your arms
Yeah, absolutely.
and vital organs because I think, our body's used to fighting saber-toothed tigers over thousands of years. It's not used to having a
Why can't
hard
we bring those
conversation.
back though? I want to fight a saber tooth.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a great way to settle a conversation?
Just me and you both go fight a saber tooth, and if I win, I win the argument. They just have them in cages on the corner of the street.
Well,
It's like
we
a
might as well just go back to dueling at that point.
spring back the Colosseums
Oh gosh,
to the
it's
death.
terrible.
Come on, you'd do it if they were real. I'd do it.
Yeah, I would totally
Yeah,
do
if
it.
you could
Yeah.
armor up and step into a Colosseum with a sword and a shield, I'd do it. I'd probably run away like a bitch because
I would
I don't
just
want
go
to die,
watch.
but
Honestly, if you want to jump in there, that's
support me.
fine,
Throw
man.
money on me like
I'll
I am
throw
a
money
stripper
on
on a
you.
pole.
Yeah. Well,
I'll-
you. That was a great way to sidewind that conversation.
Absolutely. Never see that
Um,
curveball coming.
well,
Colosseums
you're
to
a pitcher,
strippers.
so.
Exactly. I'm all about sliding it though. That is
Um, what was your biggest? What's the biggest hurdle you've faced in your life that you've overcame?
um trying to gain the exception from or the acceptance of my uncle, probably. So I come from not a very successful family to start out with. Dad dropped out of college. Mom was a nurse that had to work a shit ton of shifts to make up for it. Every other part of our family came from little farm families and stuff like that.
Hmm.
The one person that made it was my uncle. He now owns a company called DRC. Makes, I don't even know, millions upon millions of dollars. And never had a wife. He never had any kids. So he basically just kind of treated me and my sister like his two kids. But holy shit, was he a harsh person? There was no,
Was he distant or harsh?
he
Or
wasn't
both?
distant. He was just very, very harsh. There was no that helping. He wasn't going to hold your hand by any means through life. There was that very much you have to earn it.
Did he give you the tools to succeed, or did he just kind of tell you to figure it out?
More of just to figure it out.
Really?
And then if you come into the opportunities where you can kind of like move up a little bit, he'd give you a little nudge, but you very much had to claw and scratch your way up to
Mm.
that situation in the
He
first
wanted
place.
to see you attempt to climb that fence.
Yeah, and I think that's very much because he obviously came from not much and
Mhm.
managed to.
Managed to make it.
Yeah, I mean, he built his company from the ground up.
And he probably felt like he had no one.
Yeah.
No one helping him.
Yeah, no successor,
Hmm.
no family to work with. It kind of turned into that. Put it on to us to see if we can do the same.
How did that change your life? Looking back.
It made me realize how little others affect the outcome of the choices you make. You can have people that are very close in life, but at the end of the day, they give you release, but they don't actually achieve the success in your life for you.
That was Summer and Sarah. That's the one thing that they said was no one's gonna do it for
Oh,
you.
absolutely not.
But I mean, don't you think that friends can help you get to the next level?
Well, absolutely. That's what I mean. Like they're like it's like relief. It's kind of that you grind it for yourself and then plateau with them and then grind it back up and bring them up with you and then
Well, relief to me kind of sounds like um, a vent. Maybe to talk about what's going on in your life.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
It's kind of that, whenever you shoot one of your friends a text or they shoot you a text saying, I've
Mm-hmm.
had a tough week, that's their own personal choice through that week. And then they come to you at the end of it to kind of re-get their bearings, change the wheels on their car.
Do you lean on people like that?
Yes. I've kind of learned to, especially with the fact that it's school stuff you can't, work stuff you can't, family stuff you can't, but when it comes to how you deal with those things, you very much can lean on people for that.
Hmm. No one will get you there, but people can help you along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like running a marathon and you have that one person that, kind of hands you a glass of water.
If you could change one thing about the world, what would it be?
Oh, God. Understanding, the ability to listen.
Understanding.
You people would say like war, world hunger, poverty. It's like all of that can be solved if anyone that had any influence on anything would take the time to listen to anyone else.
Hmm.
Just the ability to kind of take in what's around them instead of shutting themselves off, letting their mind open, kind of throwing their own perspectives out the window and just kind of observing.
How would you say that coronavirus has affected your life?
Lost my apartment to it, man. No, it's pretty fucked. It's weird. I got it from my friend's brother and went and got tested. He notified me. He's like, "Yo, my brother had it. You should get tested." Went and got tested. Mailed my results to the university because I was like, it'll be easier than getting the results and having to go through all the work of notifying someone, and then they'd probably look at me weird because they're like, "Oh shit, this kid's sick." And they got the results. They were positive, and they decided to call me at 5 a.m. on a Sunday.
That doesn't make any sense because the mail's not being delivered.
And no, they got it the day before.
Why at 5 a.m.?
That's a damn good question.
Did you ask them that?
Yes.
What did
Because
they
I had
say?
they said they would look it over and like get back to me about it.
They said they'd look it over.
Yeah. They're like, we'll check the phone history and stuff like that and like see when we contact. They called me at 5 a.m. I woke up with a
Did you
fever of,
answer?
no, I'm about dead asleep. I had a fever of 103. I was asleep till
103.
10. I didn't answer for 5 hours and they took that as I was trying to skip out on letting them know or skip out on moving out. And that goes against their code of conduct in the apartment complex or whatever, so they asked me to leave.
So what would have happened if you answered at 5 a.m.?
Probably would have asked me to leave and then let me come back, I'd imagine. I don't know who's awake at 5 a.m. when they have COVID if they have symptoms, but
That
especially on a
doesn't make
Sunday.
any sense to me, man.
It made no
That is
sense
the
to anyone.
weirdest situation I've ever heard about.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know about them doing that to any other students?
Um, Not that I know of. I do know that a lot of students are just choosing to leave campus anyways, because so many of the students are in quarantine now, and they're shoving them like in empty rooms to basically quarantine them. And I know that everything's full. They literally don't have room anymore. Like my three roommates, after I notified them they had to quarantine my three roommates, and they all had to move to somewhere off campus because they didn't have rooms for anyone anymore.
Did they get it?
Nope, none of them had it.
Really?
Yep.
Were they around you?
Oh, absolutely. Ate breakfast with them every morning.
Whoa.
Yep.
Have you ever heard of a coronavirus party?
A coronavirus party,
Yeah.
like a party built around
Where
COVID.
one person has it and a bunch of people come so they can intentionally get it.
I mean, it's not a bad idea. Get it out of the
Interesting
way.
concept.
Get it out of the way. Get it done with. It's
I've
like a
heard
free
both.
vaccine.
I've heard both, but
It's like a free vaccine. It might be a little fucked depending on how bad your symptoms are, but I mean,
some people don't get smell back for months, though.
yeah.
Would you,
I feel like I could go months without my smell. Taste would be a different story. I like tasting food. Food's tasty.
if you had never gotten coronavirus and the vaccine was released, would you get the vaccine?
Yeah. Depends on how much it costs, but I'd get it
It's
eventually.
free.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What,
Yeah,
you
I
think
probably
I'm?
would
You
too.
think I'm one of those anti-vaxxers?
I don't know. I mean, I've been getting mixed results.
Give
That
me
seems to be
autism.
a very controversial question.
What, the anti-vaxxers or the vaccine for COVID?
The vaccine for COVID.
I mean, they're pumping the plasmid of people who have had it into other people.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, in like its own sense, yeah, it's pretty fucked. But I mean, that's how vaccines work, though.
Well, this was the first one. The Pfizer one is they used RNA
Yeah.
to reverse engineer
Yeah.
the first vaccine ever.
Hmm. Isn't it like 95% effective too, or
Yeah.
something like that?
But you need 2 treatments.
Why do you need two?
You need one, and then you need another one after 21 days or something like that.
For what?
I don't know exactly. I haven't
That sounds
done
like a
homework on that.
sounds like a good way to make money.
Well, it's free for us, but not the government.
Well, I mean, like for the people who produce it, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Then
Yeah,
they get to sell
Pfizer's
2
making
for every.
bank.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've been funded already for the entire project by most,
Yeah.
like several developed countries, including Germany. They were a big investor.
Yeah.
I don't know. Doesn't
It-
make any sense.
Yeah, the getting 2 shots kind of confuses the shit out of me. I feel like that.
I don't know.
Might go
I need to
beyond
do
just
homework
making
on
people
that.
healthy.
I need to go beyond and do a little more studying on that. I'm gonna double back a little bit. So you already said that yourself was a big hurdle builder
Yes.
in your own life.
Yes.
Cam, I think you're great.
Took a lot of work to get me like this.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. If you would have met me 2 years ago, it'd be a different story.
Why?
I was an asshole.
Why?
I just turned cold.
Why?
Lost a lot of household stability. Lost my entire high school friend group. Got
Did you take
cheated
it out
on
on
in
your friends?
got cheated on in a 1.5-year relationship. I turned very, very, very cold. And I didn't take it out on my friend group. That's why I said I live in Prior
It's the
Lake
byproduct.
happily and sadly. That's just people from Prior Lake. They just
Do you think it was the
turn on you.
byproduct of the way you were acting? Or do you think they just moved on?
They just moved on. I didn't treat them any different after it happened. I did pretty well hiding it.
I feel like that's most high schools, though.
Yeah,
I don't have any friends from my high school
I
that I
don't think
regularly
anyone does
talk
after
to.
high school, and if they do, it's because they had their little pretty picture picked out before they even started high school.
I think one of the biggest inspirational things that I had, though, was I was sitting there and I hit up a friend who's now a tattoo artist
Okay.
and asked her, hey, can you do a tattoo for me?
Okay.
And I showed up, and it was like we took off right where we had left off 5 years ago. And it was 4 hours of catch up, and she did my entire tattoo for free for my birthday.
Those are a rare find. Friendships like that.
Really?
Yeah,
Do you think that?
I couldn't think of a single person that I'd go back to from high school where they'd want to catch up. It would very much be like, oh hey.
Do you
Good to
think
see you.
that's because you're not confident in yourself in that aspect? Or do you think that if you really went through your friends' list from high school and picked people that they wouldn't care?
Oh no, they wouldn't give a shit. And by default response to that, I wouldn't give a shit.
Why is that so cold? Why do you think it's so cold like that?
It is because you have to realize that's a friend group that I spent 4 years with, maybe more. I met some of them before high school.
And they
And to just drop that at the end of high school just instantly.
did they all go off to different places?
Oh, they all failed. I made the right choice.
Do you feel like you're the most successful friend in
Oh,
your friend
absolutely.
group?
Without a doubt. Two of them are college dropouts. The other one is somewhere living in his mom's basement. And a couple of the other ones are doing some art majors or something at a community college.
Why did you hang out with them?
Because you don't know what you're going to do in high school. They were good people at first.
What changed?
Some people matured and some didn't. I figured out how life worked a little bit before them and realized kind of the bullshit that followed. If that makes sense.
I do remember the first friend group. So I went to a big elementary school, or I went to a very small elementary school. My graduating class in 6th grade was 9 kids, and it was a private Christian school.
How many?
9. And
Fucking hell.
then I went to junior high, and my class size was 1,400 kids.
That sounds
And
about right.
half of the people that went to my class of 9 moved on to different schools, and the other half, or a third of them, were football or sports people, and that was never really my strong suit.
You weren't an athletic person?
No, so they went to the instantly popular crowd because they were playing, minor
Oh,
leagues
yeah.
and stuff like that. Um, and I had one friend going into this junior high.
Were they at least a good friend? Because I'd take one good friend over, like, a group of people who could care less.
I think they were a really good friend, but after my first semester, they did split lunches. So now this person is in a different lunch group.
Oh, God. Then it's over. As soon as they're sitting at a different lunch table, it's done.
Yeah.
It's like the making and breaking of friendships is lunch period.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it totally changes the game.
Mine was weird as shit, though. We just had really fucked up conversation. I had, like, one table that I sat with, and, mind you, we were dumb as shit. And, like, the vice principal got in on the conversation. And, like,
In your conversation, the vice principal
yeah.
hopped into your conversation.
Yeah, and along with, like, the other lunch supervisors, he was the vice principal was the dad of one of the dudes that sat at the table with us. Like, the whole conversation was based off, it's gonna be so fucking stupid, was based off of whether or not it was weird to suck your own dick.
Why?
I don't know.
And the vice principal is like joining in on
he
this?
he would come by. It was like a week-long conversation spanned across, like, 5 lunch periods.
Have you ever wanted to kill yourself?
Yes. Twice. Did I do it? Obviously not.
Yeah. Oh, you weren't successful.
No, I didn't get that far. I did with one. Um, One was after we went through all the family stuff. Uh, Lost parents separated, and dad was very much on the bad side of the separation. And kind of came back out of nowhere, out of the blue, and basically took us to court for a month straight trying to fight for custody over my sister.
Just her.
Just her.
Did that make you feel uh did that make you feel invalued or unvalued?
More than you would ever believe. It was basically a month straight of non existence from everything. And that was the one where I got pretty close. And then the other one was cheated on in a year and a half relationship. But I mean, you know,
That's high school.
yeah, you get over it. It hurts like a bitch, but you get over it.
Yeah.
Just depends on how quick you are to kind of say fuck it.
Spring back.
I mean, there's those people that have the luxury of being able to enter a hoe phase and they kind of get out of it a little quicker.
Do you feel like that's why you need to be the funny guy?
It's very much where that personality was adopted from. It's not intentional now, but before it was very much of I felt like I needed to be valued somehow. And I wasn't in high school, I wasn't invited to a whole lot of things. I was very nerdy, very scrawny. And it very much became of how can I find a way to basically stay in the knitting?
You wanted to be in.
Yes. Which I mean, that's the high school mentality. You want some group to fit in. Higher up the chalking board you can go, the better. Climb up the food chain. Can avoid some of the bullying at the bottom, hopefully.
That was always the goal for me.
Yeah, same.
Be funny enough that you're not bullied.
Yeah, make them laugh. They might not hit you. It's a fucked up mentality, but that's where the character is built in high school.
How would you say your mental health has evolved from that point?
It's increased about tenfold. It was very rough to start out with, but I mean, got a good group of friends now. Probably the best I've ever had and could ever ask for. Family's stabilized out. Mom has a boyfriend that she's been dating for 4 years. Probably gonna become my stepdad pretty soon. Sister's happy. Everyone else is happy. I'm
If
getting
you
through
could,
college.
if you could go back and tell yourself, have a 5-minute conversation with yourself
Oh
when you were
God.
suicidal, what would you tell yourself?
Fuck. I'd actually probably challenge myself. I wouldn't be that person that would say, like, it's not worth it. I'd probably really make me question whether it was a possibility I wanted to have happen or not, if that makes sense.
So you would ask, why do you really want to do this?
Yeah, I'd look myself dead in the eye and be like, like, if you're actually going to do it, like, what is the actual reason? And I wouldn't be that person that'd be like, oh, you have so much to live for. I'd be like, why is this the final result that it's come to?
Wow.
Probably have matured me a lot quicker than I did on my own.
Yeah. Do you feel like suicide's selfish?
Yes and no. Yes, in the fact that I feel like there's a lot of other options you could go to before that. And a lot of people say they explore them, but they don't actually.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, which, I mean, it's hard opening up about that stuff, but I feel like it's definitely the first step that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And then the aspect of it not being selfish is that then there are those cases where people have literally done anything and there's nowhere else for them to go.
What do you want to be remembered by?
Oh God, like my legacy?
Mm-hmm. Like, how do you want people to remember you?
That personal pride does not mean shit. I could give a rat's ass what people that I don't know think about me. I mean, hell, I drove over here in a Jesus costume with a cowboy hat on and was waving at people out my window. It's just, I don't know. It's a level of self-confidence that's very hard to get, and I've kind of touched it a little bit. I haven't fully grasped it, but I don't know. It's beyond that loving yourself. It's more of to the fact of just not giving a shit, but in like the best way possible. It's like bliss. It's the best way I can describe it. You don't
Yeah.
feel that weight. There's no turn in your gut. There's no hardness of breathing. There's no racing thoughts. It's just you're there. You're there in a Jesus costume and a cowboy hat.
I've never heard you say anything negative about anybody.
I refuse to. There's no point. I don't know how any of you do anything about your lives when I'm not here.
Do you
Why the
think that's
hell? Why the hell would I add another shitty thing to your plate if you're already dealing with something?
do you think that's why you're as happy as you are?
Oh, absolutely. That comes with the no regrets. Is I've very much cleared my mind of the fact that I don't do harm to people. I treat people very kindly. I'd say so.
Mm-hmm.
Try to be as genuine as possible. Obviously, there's some points where you might have to lie a little bit just to keep someone from hurting. That whole like, do I look fat in this dress type ordeal. But
Hmm.
I very much find kindness in the helping of others.
That brings you fulfillment.
I wouldn't say fulfillment more as it does agreement with myself, knowing that I've turned it around. Because I knew it was always possible. I fulfilled it long ago once I kind of changed my whole persona, but it's kind of more of the fact of,
Can you pass me the water? Sorry.
sir, that is not water. I don't know what you mean by water. That is a concoction from hell.
It's Gatorade.
Yes. Gatorade and Sprite and
Some other
some other happy-go-lucky
methodical
juices.
spirits.
It's the Holy Spirit in a jug.
If you could tell someone struggling out there in the world one thing, what would it be?
Just accept that you're struggling. People always tell you like, yeah, there's push through it, but there's another level of just, you have to know you're struggling to be able to stop it first. There's people that try to hide it, those people that try to sugarcoat it. It's acknowledge the fact that you have fucked up or someone else has fucked you over. Just get your shit figured out first, then go about fixing it. It's a super hard process to go about because it very much makes you question how you go about things, but you'll probably come out a better person in the end, most likely. Some don't, but I mean, most do.
It's growing pains.
Yeah. If you don't, that just means, acknowledge that you fucked up a second time. Then start the process over. I mean, fuck, it took me like 5.
Have you ever had friends that didn't want to get better and you've had
Yes.
to give up on?
Yes. Had a friend in high school, I won't say any names, just because
Yeah.
don't need to put that out there, but very much he acknowledged himself that he had some sort of issue, whether it was mental or a personality thing, and we called him out on it a good couple of times, but he very much refused not to change, but he almost just refused to acknowledge for himself that he's changed. So he changed a little bit, he got a little bit better, but it was almost like he just had the second half of it buried under a second layer, and that would just kind of flip back out once it kind of
Like he was hiding it rather than dealing with it.
dealing with it, yeah.
To seek approval.
Yes. It was like he wanted us to acknowledge that he had changed before he acknowledged it himself. And it got really ugly. It got really, really ugly. Because then we'd call him out on it more, and then the switch would just get harder and harder and harder, and it got ballistic in some cases. Some thrown chairs and stuff like that.
What's your opinion of me now? And what was your opinion of me when you first met me?
When I first met you, it was a very weird opinion because we just talked drunk in your garage.
Yeah. And then in the kitchen.
And then in the kitchen, and then on the trampoline. And
you saw me sitting there alone in the kitchen.
Yep. Went over and talked to you. At first, it was very much, I didn't know much about your personality. I'm usually one of those people, like the glass half full kind of guys, where I'll very much expect the best out of someone before I see their worst.
Yeah.
And so coming into it, you seemed like a very kind person, which I know now that you are.
Oh, thank you.
And but the first thing that hit me was just despite how overly intoxicated we were, it was one of the realest conversations I had had in a long time. We just kind of immediately stacked on personal stuff, and it got very, very, I guess, real very, very quickly. And there was no sugarcoating, there was no nothing. I just sort of acknowledged the fact that you were not a person to hide much off of first impressions.
Hmm.
And then my perspective of you increased in that way, and then came that one night where you kind of shared your little written word with us.
Oh. Yeah.
And yeah, no, my respect for you is knows no bounds. Let's put it that way. I very much see you as a person that ideologizes. That's a word. Sure, we'll make it a
Yeah,
word.
we'll make it a word.
It's a word now. Put it in the dictionary. With me on a level that I feel like we have a lot of mutual respect for each other.
Mm-hmm. That we do. That we do, buddy.
And we don't ask a lot of each other, just the minimum, and if we want to share more, then we share more.
I appreciate you coming on this podcast, man. I really do.
I told you, man, I've been looking forward to
This
this.
has been an absolute experience,
I
buddy.
told you. I was gonna say I could make it more of an experience. If we want to fucking backtrack back to religion, I could blow your mind even
Oh
more.
my gosh. We need to do a second podcast just on religion at this point.
I was just gonna stack on the question where you asked me like why I believe in or something higher but not God.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
in the Bible, in the Old Testament, there is the story of Exodus with Abraham.
Yep.
And one of the biggest beliefs in religion is that there's only one God. They think that's one of the 10 commandments. There's only one God, and it is God. But the original case was that you were only to believe in that God. And it even says in Exodus after, and along with the portrayal that, God loves everyone evenly, Abraham was very much chosen on a higher pedestal than other people. He sold his wife off as his sister to the Pharaoh, which was a sin, and God forgave him on the spot and then punished the Pharaoh for taking the woman that he didn't know was the other person's wife. So that already contradicts the fact of God loving everyone evenly. There's already showings of people being held higher than others. And then further in Exodus, when they challenged the mages of the Pharaoh, they talk about Ra, the sun god of Egypt. So they acknowledge the existence of other gods and other religions. And so that was the first contradiction for me. And then the other one was the fact that all of these saintly figures in the Bible lived perfect lives. But if you look at the story of like the Messiah and his disciples, it's not a story of success. It's never a story of success, no matter how it's told. It's always a story of failure. It's a story of the failure to understand the actual portrayal or meaning behind what happened with the miracles of the Messiah. If you look at all the disciples, it's always about greed. It's always about a lack of perspective. It's always about them almost like they just can't grasp what they're actually following, yet they still follow it blindly.
Do you think that was their mistake, following something blindly?
No, because that's what religion is. That's what the miracle of it is. It's the fact that there's so much unknown that it kind of makes reason to stuff we don't understand. And that's was the perspective of, or what was supposed to be shown is that no matter how high on that pedestal that you're held, no one knows anything.
Wow.
And that's part of the reason I haven't been to a church in like 5 years, 6 years. And it's because it's sort of they sit you down and they pump all this stuff into your brain like they know how the universe works. And then you look back at it and it's like, those parts you skipped over. No one knows what happens with any of it.
Well, that's what the problem with church is that it's one man's interpretation of the
Yep.
Bible and his explanation to the congregation.
Yep.
And if you listen to the way that Jesus talked, it was never meant to be that way.
Oh, no, not at all. It was, I think one of the things they use in the Bible is like the talking of the olive tree and like including everything, no matter what grows on it. It's very much the way it's talked about with how Jesus spoke, is it's very much everything is included. That's what Christianity is supposed to be. Christianity means the universal religion.
Hmm.
It's meant to be a religion that can be followed by all. And yet it's become almost this secluded thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like how pilgrims came to America.
Yeah.
And, yeah, the Protestants,
Yeah.
the Puritans, they came to America to share the gospel to
Mm-hmm.
indigenous people. And they came here and they almost immediately turned it into a private entity.
Yep.
In terms of their whole mission was, we're going to go share this, but they came here and bashed indigenous people and clicked to their own beliefs in small communities,
Yes.
and nothing was accomplished.
They changed it more into conformity than sharing.
Mm-hmm. I think that's been the biggest problem with humans in the Bible in the first place.
That's where a lot of disagreement comes from as well. It's very much a my way or the highway ordeal.
Yeah. I don't think that's right at all. I think it's an open conversation.
Oh, absolutely. It's supposed to be a personal experience. It's supposed to be about acts of God onto yourself or lack thereof.
Yeah.
Everyone has some sort of experience. Like, have you ever had one? Experience with God? No, I'm asking the questions.
Have I had an experience with God? Uh, I don't know.
Have you ever had a moment where you felt like you needed one and you were alone?
No, but there's a story my mom always tells me that I don't remember because I was 3 or 4 years old. Um, I was sitting in the living room alone and she was in the bathroom. And I don't know, my mom's real spiritual, similar to your family.
All moms are.
Yeah. Like my mom would tell me stories about how she saw demons walking by towards my room. It's real weird. We don't
Oh,
need
so
to
she
go into
was like
that.
spiritual.
Yeah. But there was a time when I was 3 years old and I was sitting there in my living room around a glass coffee table and she walked away and she heard the table shatter. And I was sitting there on the floor in this room, nowhere near the glass coffee table. And there were shards of glass all around me, but I wasn't cut.
So that's a pretty spiritual moment.
And I don't remember this at all, but I have no idea what that means. But I don't know. That one's kind of resounded on me. But personally, beyond that I can remember, no, not really. Although I did have one time when I was praying and reading this book, Prayers That Rot Out Demons or something like that, that my grandfather gave me. And
Sounds like a pretty
I
interesting
was
book.
listening to music on my boombox or whatever back in the day, CD.
Oh, good old boombox.
Um,
Did you have it up on your shoulder too?
no. But as soon as I started praying, the music turned down completely, and I just felt this overwhelming sense of dread. And as soon as I finished the prayer, the music turned back on, and it was overwhelming peace.
So yeah, I'd say you'd have some moments.
Yeah.
Not sure what at all they mean, but
I don't know what they mean either.
That's for you to figure out. Like I said, personal experience.
Oh gosh. All right. I'm gonna draw this to a close. We can have a follow-up conversation because I could talk to you for 5 hours about religion
Oh, absolutely.
and what it all means. I don't even know if I want to ask you this question, but what's your favorite sandwich, buddy?
Oh, BLT, easy. Stacked BLT. 2 times the bacon to lettuce and tomato.
That's also my favorite, I'd say. It's simple.
We're so
It's
much
light.
alike.
It's easy.
It is. It is
Filling.
beauty and simplicity.
Oh, I love it.
Do you ever put any sauce on it, or is it just BLT? Like a little bit of like Chipotle mayo.
Pub 42.
Yeah.
This place down the street. They put a garlic aioli on it. And it is the best BLT I have ever had. And they have this seasoned jalapeno bacon.
Trying to go to Pub 42 after this?
I'm probably down, actually.
Get some BLT.
I had one yesterday,
Seth,
but I'll
Isaiah,
have
you guys
another
down?
one.
Get down.
All right. Looks like we're going to get some BLTs then.
Well, it's been great having you, buddy.
Oh, it's been a pleasure
love to,
being on here.
I would love to have you here again
Oh, absolutely.
any day. I think you're a genuinely honest person.
I pride myself on it.
I don't know. I think you're a winner, man, and I think you give yourself less credit than you deserve, but
Yeah.
you're going to make it, buddy.
I'm trying. Trying my best. We're getting through.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. It's been a pleasure having you, Cam. Can't wait to have you back again.
Absolutely.
Everybody have a good night.